So by this point, I've done reviews of both Batman and Wonder Woman media, but I've never so much as touched upon the final, and some might say most important member of the DC Trinity, Superman. And I admit that that's because I've rarely been a very big Superman fan. As a kid, I used to love the Lois and Clark series, and this past March I actually did some filming in the Superman-themed Metropolis, Illinois, but other than that, Superman has rarely done much for me. That's not to say I dislike him or devalue his impact on American culture, but I've just always preferred Batman. Recently though, I realized that I'd never actually seen the 1978 Richard Donner Superman film, and that realization astonished me. It was the quintessential superhero film, the film that launched the modern genre. So I quickly ran out, bought it, and watched it. And it's every bit as great as I'd always heard. The casting, the effects, the storytelling, the style. I did believe that a man could fly. That's not to say that it's not peppered with some head-scratching moments, but it's overall pretty solid. Unfortunately, very unfortunately, the ending was also as terrible as I'd always heard. In fact, it was worse than I'd always heard. I know this movie is a sacred cow for a lot of people, but I also doubt I'm covering ground that hasn't been tackled many times before. So let me just go ahead and say now that this ending is absolutely ridiculous! The setup is good. Superman confronts Lex Luthor only to find out that he's launched two missiles in opposite directions, one going to New Jersey, the other to California, and that Superman will only have time to stop one. This is good. The villain forcing the hero to choose one of two outcomes that should inevitably cause him to lose no matter what can make for good drama, and it's an idea that's been reused in subsequent superhero films such as Batman Forever, Spider-Man, and The Dark Knight. And it's always best when the hero actually does lose something rather than find some tricky way around it. Now before Miss Tessmacher saves him from kryptonite, she makes Superman promise to stop the New Jersey missile first. He does, but that causes him to be unable to stop the second one. While he's able to curb most of the damage from the impacting missile, he's unable to save Lois Lane in time and she's buried alive in her own car. This is also really good. It took a lot of guts to pull a move like this. It's genuinely scary to see Lois struggling for her life, and it resonates to see Superman cope with his own failure and ultimately choose to decide to go against Jor-El's commands not to interfere in human events. But this is where everything falls apart. In order to put things right, Superman flies around the Earth so fast that he reverses its rotation, and this causes the Earth to travel back in time and allows Superman to save Lois. I'm sorry, but this just makes no sense! None! Okay, first let me say that I know that this plot device was originally supposed to be used in Superman 2, and in fact is used in the Richard Donner cut version. But while its use in that movie does eliminate one problem I'm going to talk about, it's still ludicrous simply in theory. First off, I enjoy time travel stories. I also give time travel stories a lot of benefit of the doubt in terms of making sense. Whether it be the stable time loop gag like with Star Trek 4's transparent aluminum, the variable timeline theory from the Back to the Future movies, or branching alternate timelines like in Dragon Ball, simply because time travel is such an unknown element with so many random possibilities that I can buy it. I have a high suspension of disbelief. But the idea that one can turn back time by reversing the Earth's rotation? I'm sorry, but I just don't buy it. The writers are committing a logical fallacy by expecting us to believe that the Earth's rotation is the cause of time moving forward. It is simply a consequence of time moving forward. Now, if someone did reverse the Earth's rotation, what people would most likely see is the sun traveling in the opposite direction. Evening would become morning and so forth. And that might lead people to assume that time is traveling backwards because the consequences of what we associate with time moving forward is being reversed. But by that logic, I could travel through time simply by turning my watch back, or even walking backwards, simply because it's the opposite of what one normally experiences when time moves forward. And are we to then assume that the passage of time is only relative to Earth itself? Would astronauts in orbit be unaffected? Would the occupants of the Phantom Zone not have traveled through time because they weren't on Earth at that moment? Those who are Power Rangers fans and have seen my Mighty Morphin Kaku Rangers video will know that Master Vile also uses the same broken logic to turn back time in Season 3 of that show, and also that I didn't so much as mention it in that video. Well, that's for three reasons. One is that really wasn't relevant how Ninja Sentai Kaku Ranger became Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Two is that the Orb of Doom was at least explained as being magical with a specific purpose of turning back time. Superman is not specifically made to turn back time. He's using his own established powers to accomplish a goal that should have nothing to do with time travel. And three, Power Rangers is a goofy kids show that often doesn't make any sense. But Richard Donner's stated goal for this film was verisimilitude, and this just totally drops the ball on that concept. But as I said, no one knows if time travel is really possible, let alone how it's accomplished. And as far as I know, no one's ever turned back the Earth's rotation. So let's just assume now that this is possible, or that maybe some fan justification like that Superman isn't actually turning the world back but is traveling faster than light or some such is valid, even though the commentaries don't seem to support this. But let's just say that this method will generate the desired result. Fine. So now I'm really confused. When I first watched the following scene where Superman lands in front of Lois's car, relieved that she's alright, I assumed what I was supposed to believe was that Superman had used the extra time to stop the second missile before it impacted, and that's why Lois was safe this time. But then Lois starts complaining about all the horrible earthquakes she'd gone through, and then Jimmy shows up making references to Superman saving him, so obviously Superman didn't stop the missile. Why didn't he stop the missile? That would seem like the most logical thing to do if he was going to do anything. But if he didn't stop the missile, what did he do? He didn't swoop in and save Lois's car from falling in the crevice. In fact, there was no crevice this time. Did the ground just see Superman coming and decide to stay in line? I've listened to 2 commentary tracks and I still have no idea what exactly Superman accomplished with his time traveling because he didn't seem to do anything. For that matter, shouldn't there be 2 Supermans? Wouldn't this create a time paradox since the cause of his time travel has now been eliminated? Or did this simply create an alternate timeline with some sort of butterfly effect where that stretch of road happened to remain unharmed? I honestly don't think the writers knew or even considered any of this, but just thought of time travel as an easy way out. In fact, based on all this, I'm just going to have to conclude that Superman didn't actually travel through time at all. What we're actually seeing him do is fly to the studio to demand a quick rewrite so that Lois doesn't die. Oh, and using his magic wall-building powers from Superman 4 to put the dam back together. That's the only explanation that makes any sense. What's really bad about this is how disappointing it is. Superman was a great movie, a legendary movie, a movie that inspired countless other superhero movies, but the ending just drags it down. In the end, it's an ending that, while emotionally satisfying, requires you to shut off your brain for it to really work. And that's just not good storytelling.